Hello friends, welcome to SQL Server tutorial. In this video, we will learn about the server login. Server login in the sense here we are talking about the database server. We will also see how to create a server login. A login is a security principle which can be mapped to a database user. For example, SA is a login. Similarly, your Windows user account is also called a login. The former one is the SQL Server security principle. The second one is the Windows principle. That means your Windows user account. The login principle can be a Windows domain user account from ADS Active Directory Service or local to SQL Server, example SA user account. Login principle can own server level access. Example, creating a backup or creating a database, deleting a database, doing a recovery. So whatever is seen as a server level action that can be done by the login principle. So if we take a server, so a server can have multiple database, right? Let's say DB1, DB2, DB3. You can see this as pubs, Northwind, or your company DB. Say for example, bank account DB, right? So a server can have multiple DB, and the action like server level action in the sense taking a backup of this DB to a physical disk as a backup file, right? That is seen as a server level action, or completely deleting a database and creating a new database. All these are server level action, right? Login principle can own server level access. Example, creating a backup or deleting a database. All these stuffs are seen as a server level actions. If a login need access to a specific database or want to authorize DB objects, it needs to be mapped to a database user. Suppose, say for example, inside this DB, if you want to drop a table, so this will be a table, let's consider, and if you want to drop it, then you need to map the user to a login. Say for example, you have a server, and let's assume that the server contains a DB, and let's name this as pubs DB, and there can be other DB as well. A login provide access to enter inside the DB. That's what called login, right? So a login can be mapped to an user. Here let's say this is user 1 and this is user 2. If you look at here, let's state this login 1. The login 1 with some username and password, they can enter inside the server, and that login 1 can be mapped to a database user U1 and U2. So U1 can access the pubs database and U2 can access the bank database, but they both are dealt with the login principle login 1. So all will look like a user for you. For example, this is also a user. Using this, you will enter or connect to a server. Then there is a user that belongs to a database, and this user will be useful to provide object level permission that we will learn in coming videos. For now, you can see the mapping. Login 1 is mapped to two user account, U1 that belongs to pubs, U2 that belongs to Mac. While installing SQL Server, SA account is created which has administrator permission. So SA is a built-in account, right? So when you are installing the SQL Server itself, we can see SA login is created for us. Now we will see how to create SQL Server login principle. Here we are talking about SQL Server login principle, not the Windows principle. So to create a Windows principle, you need access to Active Directory Service, ADS. So that requires a Windows Server machine. Here we are using a Windows 10 machine for the demonstration. So we will use the SQL Server login principle. Like SA account, we will create one more user account here. So the goal here is to create a user called test user. So that's what we are going to do. Let's go to the demo now. So log into SQL Server using SA login. So here you can see once login is completed, you can see the connected user. So under security, you can see the login, and if you expand that, you can see different user account. So this SA belongs to the SQL Server, and this is the user account that belongs to this specific machine. So since it's a standalone machine, you are seeing the desktop machine name, then user that belongs to this machine. So if it is a domain user account, you will see the domain name followed by the your Windows login name. And if you have multiple user account under a single domain, and it's possible to provide database access to the login. Now let's create a new login. For that, we will right click under the login node and choose new login. Here we are creating the login, or we can say we are creating the SQL Server security principle. We will give login name as test user here. And we will choose SQL Server authentication. For simplicity reason, we will give ABC123 as the password. Here also I am giving ABC123. So we provided the password, and this is SQL Server authentication. Username is test user. Here we are removing the enforce password policy. This password policy here for this internal demo, it is not required. But if you are creating at industry level, then it is good to have this option. Why? Because this will enforce the password expiration. Also, it will allow user must change the password at next login. So if there is a new database user, you will create a user account for him or her, and he will share the default password to the person. And when the person logins for the first time using his username and default password, the system will ask them to change the password. So when they change the password is secret to the person who is logging in, right? So even the administrator don't know the password. Right, here they provide some password, say like ABC123, and when user logs in, when the test user logs in, they will change the password, and it may not be ABC123. Since it is just a demo, here we are removing the enforce password policy, and we provide the default database as pubs. So that's all here. If you want to provide a language, you can do that. Here I'm going with the default language for this specific system. Next, we will go to the server role, and in that, if you see, there are different roles available, which is specific to the server. See, for example, DB creator. This is a server level object, right? Disk admin, server level security instance, right? Here we are giving sysadmin. That means the role can allow all server level permission to the user. Next, we need to, so here permission to connect to database engine, which is granted, and login also enabled. That's all. Now we can create the login. We will click OK here. You can see the test user is created. Now we will use this same SQL Server Management Studio itself to check the login created is working or not. For that, we will right click here and choose disconnect. Once we disconnect to the database, you can click back, connect database engine. This will provide the login screen. Here this time we will use the test user and password is ABC123. So I provided a caps. So here if you see test user, that's the connected user, and test user have access to the pubs database. That's the default database we gave when creating the login. And under the security, you can see the new login test user. So now we will go to the new query, and default, if you see pubs is selected here. Select star from authors. We can execute the query. Now let's try to switch to some other database. So the user account, whatever we created, is working, and this is the server level login, and using the login test user login we connected to the database. Now we will disconnect this user. Connect back using the SCA. And we will go to the security, logins, test user is here, right? If you need, you can delete the user using the delete button here. Alright, let us delete this user. Remember, now we are inside the SCA user account. That means SCA user is deleting this login. Deleting server login does not delete the database user. Anyhow, we haven't mapped any database user to this test user, so we can click on OK. So it is stating that could not drop login test user as the user is currently logged in. Okay, let's click cancel. Currently logged in user is SCA only. I'm not sure why it is. So currently logged in user was SCA previously. Now we quit out of SQL Server Management Studio. We will launch Management Studio and keep SCA here. Now we will try again. So this time it got deleted. So we completely quit out of SQL Server Management Studio, and then we dropped the test login. Now let's quit again and Management Studio. So the recently logged in user list still shows test user. If you place test user and provide ABC123, it states that user does not exist. Just now you saw the demo. Thank you for watching. Bye.